And then there's also color helping to really organize your film. Ron is a film by Akira Kurosawa and epic film. And color, this is actually a brilliant film to study as far as color symbology and color meaning something. But on its simplest level, you have these brothers, and each of them is represented by a color, and they all kind of go to war. So to help organize that, you can see in these scenes where you have these epic battle scenes, you need to instantly and easily identify who's fighting who and who's where. And so you could see the brothers are facing off in battle on the bottom scene. Just really very clear filming.
I think what's important is that if they were trying to convey the gruesomeness of the word, samurai word and stuff, they might have chosen different kind of palette. But the story was so much about these fights between these brothers, and divide of these three brothers was such a story point, and they made it very clear with the color. It's just so brilliantly done.
And then also identity of place. This is a more recent example, The Matrix by the Wachowski brothers. And there's two worlds. There's kind of inside the Matrix, or the computer, which is represented by this green tint. So everything in this world has this greenish tint. And then there's reality, kind of where the characters are hooked up to computers and that sort of thing, and the Matrix, and plugged into the Matrix, but not in the Matrix. And that's kind of in this more gray, neutral scenes. And similar, it's like in Traffic by Steven Soderbergh. He does the same thing. You spend a lot of time in these two different places, and you cut between them. And he uses this real super clear, almost some would argue overly used blue with Michael Douglas's world, and then in Mexico they use this kind of warm filter.
I think these are the sort of like filters that we introduced in lesson 7 that they tend to do quite a bit in the recent years. Film filter coloring can actually bring a different emotion to it.
Absolutely. And here's another simple example of kind of distinguishing between worlds. Another film with two different worlds is Peter Pan, where there's the reality of world, the real world, and kind of Neverland. And you could see even here the kind of opening shots are in these kind of earthier, more neutral tones. Even when they're flying over the city, it's kind of this grayish tone to all their color. And the transition is literally flying through these rainbows to arrive to this colorful world that is just these kind of magnificent colors styled by Mary Blair. Really magical. And you could see kind of in this lower frame the difference in even two different night scenes, one being in kind of Neverland and the other being in the real world. You can see the difference between the two of them,
totally,
which is really interesting. And then, of course, it's very clear when you're back into the real world, because you go back into these neutrals at the end of the film. And I love that it actually creates this kind of excitement or tension when you see the color versus the drabness of reality.
Totally.
Really works well. Wanted to point out a specific cinematographer that we will talk about more, I think, in next week's lecture as well, but Conrad Hall.
Conrad Hall is one of the greatest cinematographers ever lived, and he has done numerous incredibly shot films, but also he's known for kind of introducing new ways of shooting. So it's not like because film started as an extension of a theater, so the shooting something almost using the disadvantage of camera and lenses and stuff was supposed to be no in the beginning for a long time. And then he started introducing a lot of sort of a bold lighting choices, like in this Cool Hand Luke is in one of the first films that he introduced light at the camera. That's something that nobody said you could do, but he started playing with that stuff, and it kind of creates interesting feeling. You know, the one on the top is Butch Cassidy, and that's the same thing. Who comes up with this kind of shot? And he did. And this is American Beauty. He one of his later works, and you know, even in color, right? Color, and I'm sure working with the production designers, the color choices here definitely brings this certain feeling.
Yeah, the lack of color almost, and I think too the effective use of light here. I mean, one thing what's great to point out here is you know, with these great cinematographers, a lot of times there's no separation between the use of light and color.
Yep.
They're kind of one and the same thing.
Just like what we've been talking about all this course, you know, it should be exactly the same thing. You should be treating it as the same thing. We broke it down just so that we can focus on talking about color for this particular class, but
yeah, and in that same film, you know, you have this scene.
Yeah, this is an incredible shot where, you know, this is a shot where Kevin Spacey's character finds his wife, you know, cheating on him on the spot. And what's great about it is that, you know, being colorful, normally you think of it as like fun and uplifting, and you know, you can't be more uplifting than this Mr. Smiley logo, right, with the smiley face. And then how creepy is this shot, right, with this colorful, you know, palette and the smiley face, and in a way it's pushing the contrast of, you know, his kind of his face in the shadow, how creepy that is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love that it's just the color in this scene. Like if you looked at this compared to the previous scenes, it's so bright and colorful, but still it has that tone. And he's okay. I think as a character, he's okay.
Well, because he actually is almost happy. He's so jaded, and he has demon almost, you know, sort of possessed in him, that he's actually, you know, there saying, you know, thinking like a gotcha, right? It's really creepy.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's another Conrad Hall film that was shot with Sam Mendes directing, The Road to Perdition. And I think it's great because, you know, you look at, these are only 6 frames, but all of this, like all of the way the choices that are made here are really, in a way, like this really dark overall scenes, very
kind of more dramatic, leading up towards that last scene.
Yeah, absolutely. With you know, you could see in this scene, it's the accent of blood. Please forgive us if you haven't seen this film. Absolutely, you should come see this. Go see this film if you haven't seen it. But just that accent of red amongst the almost bleached out white.
Yeah, because the story is so much about father protecting his own son from getting, you know, his hands dirty, and just really keeping him safe from this whole crime sort of routine that he's been involved with, and leading up to this white, clean slate kind of era, and he's the one who has the blood on, and just so that he can protect his own son. Just beautiful.
And here's 101 Dalmatians. And again, you know, it's color that's really just tonal. And what I like about this is it's not necessarily naturally lit. It's a very abstract kind of placement of color altogether. But what's driving it is really kind of the ideas of kind of home being represented by these earthy colors and safety. You know, so this is throughout the film, from both the beginning and end, they use these warm oranges and kind of warm colors to represent safety and kind of home. And then, you know, while the dogs are kind of traveling, you have this kind of icy blue or grays that they travel across. But you always have this accent of red that represents, I think, this evil, this kind of Cruella de Vil. When you see Cruella de Vil for the first time, she's kind of this, you know, got this pink everything, red everything, and the climax of the film, when they're kind of escaping from these thugs, the red of the fire overtakes the whole room. And even as Cruella de Vil is chasing them in the end, before they get to safety, is this kind of dominant pink sky. All of this to really help tell the story of these dogs and getting to safety.
Porco Rosso, just simply, you know, the red airplane versus his villain is blue.
And it's just super clear.